The scent of dill pickles and simmering pot roast filled our modest suburban kitchen in the soft glow of a Portland, Oregon afternoon. Sarah Thompson stood at the counter, my hands aching from arthritis as I meticulously chopped vegetables for my mother-in-law's favorite dish. This wasn't just any meal, it was Margaret's obsession, a pot roast with homemade dill pickles that could either soothe her fragile mind or unleash a storm of tantrums. My life for years had revolved around keeping that storm at bay. But today something snapped inside me, a moment so vivid, it felt like rebirth, not a mystical reincarnation, but a seismic shift in my soul, as if I'd woken from a decades-long fog of compliance. It started with a jar, not just any jar, but one I'd driven 40 miles to a specialty market in Beaverton to buy, clutching it like a trophy through the pain in my joints. Those pickles were Margaret's lifeline, the key to a peaceful evening in our chaotic home. I'd just set the jar on the counter, ready to add the tangy slices to the roast, when my husband James strolled in, his tech bro polo shirt slightly rumpled, his hazel eyes distracted. In his hand was the empty jar, 2 lone pickle slices clinging to the glass like a taunt. My heart lurched. "James," I said, my voice tight, "did you take the pickles?" He barely looked up from his phone. "Yeah, Lisa needed them for a casserole. Sarah's got it rough raising Mia alone since Tom died." His tone was casual, as if he'd borrowed a pen, not the linchpin of our household's fragile harmony. Lisa, the widow of James's late best friend, had become a fixture in our lives, her presence a slow-growing shadow over our marriage. But this was different. This was theft, not just of pickles, but of my effort, pain, and dignity. I set down the knife, my hands trembling, not from pain, but from a fury I'd suppressed for years. "Do you know what it took to get those? I drove an hour, James. Margaret will lose it if she doesn't get her roast exactly right. You didn't even ask." My voice cracked, but I didn't care. James frowned, his jaw tightening. "What's the big deal? You could have bought extra." "Lisa's struggling, Sarah. She's Tom's widow. Be honest, does it really matter that much?" Those words, "be honest," hit like a slap. They were the same ones he used every time he prioritized Lisa over me, our daughter Emily, and our family. I'd heard them when he gave Lisa the gift cards from his company's holiday raffle, when he spent his weekends fixing her leaky pipes instead of playing catch with Emily, when he started wearing that cedarwood cologne Lisa loved, a scent that now clung to him like betrayal. In that moment, staring at the empty jar, I saw my life clearly. I was a prop in James's story, a caretaker for his mother, a placeholder while he built a fantasy with someone else. Something broke inside me, but it wasn't despair, but clarity. I wasn't the Sarah who'd spent years swallowing her anger, apologizing for her existence. This was a new Sarah, reborn in the heat of that betrayal. I looked into James's eyes, his confusion almost comical, and said, "I want a divorce." He laughed, a sharp, disbelieving sound. "Over pickles. Come on, Sarah, you're being ridiculous." But my gaze held firm, unyielding. "Yes," I said exactly that. The kitchen air thickened, the refrigerator's hum suddenly deafening. James's smile faltered, his hands fidgeting with the empty jar. "You're serious?" he asked, his voice softer now, searching for a crack in my resolve. I didn't blink. Dead serious. The words felt like a vow, not just to end our marriage, but to reclaim my life. I'd spent too long in the background, managing Margaret's tantrums, stretching a $3,000 monthly budget. At the same time, James funneled money to Lisa, pretending not to notice the whispers about that poor widow at neighborhood barbecues no more. As James stammered, trying to pivot back to charm, "Sarah, let's talk this out. It's just a misunderstanding." I turned back to the counter, my hands steady now. The pot roast sat unfinished, a symbol of the life I was done living. I wasn't cooking for Margaret's approval or James's convenience anymore. This was my story now, and I was writing the next chapter. If you're feeling the fire of Sarah's awakening, hit that like button to fuel her journey, drop a comment to share your thoughts on James's betrayal, and subscribe to our channel for more stories of triumph over heartbreak. Your support keeps these tales alive, just like Sarah's newfound strength. Let's see where her courage takes her next. The weight of Margaret's care had been my burden for 5 years, ever since a fall down the basement stairs left her with a traumatic brain injury that rewired her mind. At 68, she had the emotional volatility of a 6-year-old, her mood swinging from childlike glee to explosive tantrums. Her obsession with pot roast and dill pickles wasn't just a preference, it was a ritual, the only thing that could anchor her to calm. Without it, our home in Portland's quiet Laurelhurst neighborhood turned into a war zone. Caregivers came and went, unable to handle her outbursts. One quit after Margaret threw a plate at her for serving store-bought pickles instead of the artisanal ones from Beaverton's market. So the responsibility fell to me, Sarah Thompson, the dutiful daughter-in-law, who'd somehow become the linchpin of this fractured family. That afternoon, after James handed Lisa the pickles I'd painstakingly sourced, I stood in the kitchen, the absence of that jar like a hole in my chest. Margaret sat at the dining table, her frail hands tapping her favorite blue ceramic bowl, counting down the seconds like a ticking bomb. Pot roast. Sarah, pot roast now, she chanted, her voice sharp with impatience. I'd already prepped the beef, seared it to a perfect golden brown, and diced carrots and potatoes, all while my arthritis sent pain through my fingers. The pickles were the final touch, the ingredient that made Margaret clap with delight instead of screaming until the neighbors called to check on us. Without them, I knew what was coming. I searched the pantry, the fridge, and the recycling bin, hoping James had misplaced the jar. But it was gone, delivered to Lisa's doorstep, like a gift from my sacrifice. My mind raced. Margaret's tantrums could last hours, leaving me exhausted, and James conveniently absent. I'd driven 40 miles that morning, navigating Portland's rain-slicked roads to get those pickles from a small-batch producer whose dill blend was the only one Margaret tolerated. The trip had taken 2 hours round-trip, my hands gripping the wheel through the pain, all to keep the peace. And James had given it away without a second thought. I confronted him when he walked back into the kitchen, empty jar in hand. James, those were for your mother. She'll go ballistic without them. Do you even care? His eyes flicked up from his phone, irritation creasing his brow. Sarah, relax. Lisa needed them for Mia's dinner. She's got no one else. Why didn't you buy extra? His tone was dismissive, as if my effort was a minor inconvenience, not a lifeline for his mother. I clenched my fist, the pain in my joints a dull echo of my growing anger. I drove an hour for those. You didn't even ask me, you just took them. James sighed, setting the jar on the counter with a clink. Lisa's raising a kid alone. Tom was my best friend. I can't just ignore her. You're making this bigger than it is. His words were a familiar script he'd used every time Lisa's name came up. She'd been a constant presence since Tom's death 2 years ago in a car crash on I-5. At first, I'd been sympathetic, baking casseroles for her, inviting her to barbecues, even babysitting Mia when Lisa had job interviews. But sympathy turned to suspicion as James's attention shifted, weekends spent fixing Lisa's porch. Instead of taking Emily to the park, gift cards from his tech job sent to Lisa's mailbox, the cedarwood cologne he never wore before, but now reeked of matching Lisa's scent. I'd tried to talk to him about it months ago, sitting him down after Emily's bedtime. James, you're spending too much time with Lisa. It's affecting Emily. She notices. He'd brushed me off, his voice honeyed but firm. Sarah is grieving. It's the right thing to do. You're my wife, act like it and stop being jealous. That night I'd cried myself to sleep, believing I was the problem. But now, standing in the kitchen, the empty jar between us, I saw it clearly. James wasn't just helping a widow. He was building a life with her, and I was the collateral damage. Margaret's chanting grew louder, her bowl tapping now a frantic drumbeat. Pot roast pickles, she shouted, her eyes wild. I knew I had minutes before she spiraled. I'd have rushed out to buy another jar in the past, running myself ragged to keep the peace. But the Sarah who did that was gone. I turned to James, my voice steady despite the chaos. You deal with her tantrum. I'm done fixing your messes. His eyes widened, but Margaret's bowl hit the floor before he could respond, shattering into blue shards. The storm had begun, and for the first time, I wouldn't weather it for him. The kitchen in our Portland, Oregon home was a battlefield, the air thick with the scent of seared beef and the echo of Margaret's shattered bowl. My mother-in-law's tantrum was brewing, her chance for pot roast with pickles growing sharper, but my focus was on James, my husband, who stood holding the empty pickle jar he'd given to Lisa, the widow next door. My arthritis-throbbing hands clenched as I repeated, "You took the pickles." I drove 40 miles for James for Margaret's roast. You didn't even ask. His casual shrug. Lisa needed them for a casserole, Sarah. She's got it rough, lit a fuse in me. This wasn't just about pickles. It was about years of being sidelined, my efforts erased for someone else. James's hazel eyes narrowed, his tech bro confidence unshaken. You're blowing this out of proportion. Why didn't you stock up? Lisa's been raising Mia alone since Tom died. I'm just helping out. His words were a rehearsed script I'd heard every time Lisa's name surfaced. But today, Sarah, who'd once nodded and swallowed her hurt, was gone, replaced by a woman who was reborn in clarity, helping out. I snapped my voice, cutting through Margaret's chants. I spent 2 hours getting those pickles in pain to keep your mother calm. You think that's nothing. You think I'm nothing. Margaret's voice spiked Pickles, now her fists pounding the table. I ignored her locking eyes with James. You gave away something I worked for, something we needed without a thought. Do you even see me anymore? He set the jar down with a clink, his jaw tight. Sarah, you're being dramatic. Lisa's Tom's widow. She's struggling. Be honest, does a jar of pickles really matter this much? That phrase, be honest, was his weapon used to guilt me into silence whenever I questioned his growing closeness with Lisa. But this time it only fueled my anger. I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. It's not about the pickles. It's about you choosing her over us over and over. I'm done. James blinked, caught off guard, but his recovery was swift. You're done over this. Come on, Sarah, let's not make a scene. He glanced at Margaret, who was now rocking in her chair, her chants turning to whimpers. Just make the roast. I'll grab more pickles tomorrow. His dismissal was a slap, but Margaret's whimper became a wail before I could respond, her hands flailing as she knocked over a glass of water. I moved to calm her, but James waved me off. I've got this, he said, his tone impatient, as if I were the problem. He knelt beside his mother, cooing, Mom, it's okay, we'll get your roast. Then to me, see, she's fine, stop freaking out. But she wasn't fine. Her eyes were wild, her breathing erratic. I knew the signs. A full-blown tantrum was seconds away. I'd spent 5 years learning her triggers, managing her brain injuries' fallout, while James played the dutiful son from a distance. Yet here he was, acting like my role was trivial. The truth hit me harder than Margaret's wails. James didn't just take the pickles. He took my agency and worth piece by piece. Lisa's casserole wasn't a one-off favor, but part of a pattern. I thought back to the past year, the company gift cards he sent to Lisa's mailbox, the weekends he spent fixing her porch while Emily, our daughter, waited for him at soccer practice. The cedarwood cologne he now wore was a scent I'd first noticed on Lisa at a neighborhood barbecue. He'd cut my monthly budget to $3,000, claiming his tech job's bonuses were tied up, but I'd seen the receipts dinners at upscale Portland restaurants billed to his card with Lisa's name on the reservations. I turned back to the counter, the unfinished pot roast symbolizing my unraveling marriage. You deal with her, I said, my voice cold. I'm not cleaning up your mess this time. James scoffed, grabbing his keys. Fine, I'm going to Lisa's to finish helping with her dinner. You figure this out. He walked out, leaving me with Margaret's escalating cries and a realization my rebirth wasn't just a moment, it was a commitment to stop living for his approval. As Margaret's wails filled the house, I picked up the phone not to chase James, but to call a friend for support. I was done playing the martyr. Margaret's cries echoed through our Laurelhurst home, a relentless reminder of the chaos I'd managed alone for years. Her brain injury from a fall down the basement stairs 5 years ago had left her with the emotional volatility of a child, her tantrums a daily test of my endurance. Without her beloved pot roast and dill pickles, she could spiral for hours, throwing dishes or screaming until neighbors peered over the fence. I'd become her keeper, not out of love, but necessity after every caregiver quit 5 in the first year alone, driven away by her outbursts. James, meanwhile, played the dutiful son when it suited him, leaving me to bear the weight while he built a new life with Lisa. Lisa, the widow of James's best friend Tom, who died in a car crash on I-5 2 years ago, had woven herself into our world like ivy choking a tree. At first, I'd been all heart baking her casseroles, watching her daughter Mia when she had job interviews, even inviting her to our 4th of July barbecue. I understood grief. I'd lost my own brother to illness a decade ago. However, Lisa's neediness evolved into entitlement, and James enabled it. He'd spend days off fixing her leaky sink or driving Mia to dance class, leaving Emily to ask why Daddy never came to her games. He'd send Lisa gift cards from his tech firm's holiday raffle, claiming they were extras, while I stretched our $3,000 monthly budget to cover groceries and Emily's school supplies. That afternoon, as Margaret's tantrum subsided into whimpers, I stood in the kitchen, the absence of the pickles James gave Lisa a glaring symbol of his betrayal. I'd driven 40 miles to Beaverton's specialty market, my arthritis screaming with every turn of the wheel to get those pickles, Margaret's only guarantee of calm. James's excuse, Lisa needed them for Mia, wasn't just thoughtless. It was a choice he'd made repeatedly. I thought of the cedarwood cologne he now wore, a scent Lisa spritzed at every neighborhood event, or the way he'd stopped letting me see our bank statements, claiming he'd handle the finances. My budget dwindled while Lisa's Instagram showed new dresses for Mia paid for by James's generosity. I cleaned up the shattered bowl, my mind replaying a moment from 6 months ago. Emily's school play where she'd played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, her face glowing with pride. James promised to be there, but when the curtain rose, his seat was empty. Later, I found him at Lisa's walking Mia home from her recital and playing the doting stand-in dad. Emily, humiliated, heard whispers from classmates. "Where's her dad?" When I confronted James, he brushed it off. "It was a one-time thing, Sarah. Lisa needed me. Emily gets it, you should too." But Emily didn't get it. She cried to sleep, asking why Daddy loved Mia more. As I swept glass from the floor, Emily peeked into the kitchen, her brown eyes wide. "Is Grandma okay?" she asked, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I forced a smile. "She'll be fine, sweetie, just a tough day." But inside, I was crumbling. James's actions weren't just neglect, they were erasure. He'd reduced me to a housekeeper, a caretaker for his mother, while he played hero for Lisa. I thought of Lisa's motivations pieced together from snippets. A former paralegal, she'd quit her job after Tom's death, relying on sympathy and James's support. Her fragility was a performance that hooked James's savior complex, but I saw the calculation in her lingering hugs, her accidental texts to him late at night. Margaret quieted, soothed by a glass of juice, but the silence only amplified my resolve. I wasn't the Sarah who'd begged for James's attention, who'd believed his promises of just helping a friend. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the half-prepped roast and made a decision. I wouldn't rush to replace the pickles or beg James to care. Instead, I texted a lawyer friend asking about divorce consultations. The rift between James and me wasn't just wide, but unbridgeable. As Emily hugged me, whispering, "I love you, Mommy," I knew I was fighting for both of us now. The kitchen in our Portland, Oregon home was silent now, the remnants of Margaret's tantrums swept into a dustpan, but the weight of my decision to leave James pressed heavily on my chest. As I sat at the table, staring at the half-prepped pot roast, my mind drifted to what I called my past life, the years before my awakening, when I was a shadow of myself, tethered to a marriage that drained me dry. That Sarah Thompson was a woman who'd swallowed her pain, believing James's promises, enduring his neglect while managing his mother's relentless demands. The memory of those years wasn't just painful, it was a warning, a map of the life I refused to repeat. 5 years ago, Margaret's fall down the basement stairs changed everything. A traumatic brain injury left her with the emotional capacity of a 6-year-old, her mood swinging from gleeful chatter to violent outbursts. Doctors called it frontal lobe damage, warning us she'd need constant supervision. Professional caregivers were an option, but Portland's agencies charged more than James's tech salary could sustain, and Margaret's tantrums drove away the few we tried. One quit after Margaret hurled a lamp screaming about wrong pickles. So I became her keeper, cooking her ritualistic pot roast, soothing her rages, all while James worked late, often I now knew at Lisa's house. Lisa, the widow of James's best friend Tom, who died in a car crash 2 years ago, had been a slow poison in our marriage. At first, I'd open my heart to her baking pies, watching her daughter Mia, thinking I was honoring Tom's memory. However, Lisa's grief was a calculated act. Her teary eyes and soft voice were a hook for James's hero complex. She'd quit her paralegal job living off Tom's life insurance and James's help gift cards, cash even a new laptop from his company's bonus pool. Meanwhile, he'd cut my budget to $3,000 monthly, claiming his salary was stretched thin. I'd believed him scrimping groceries and sewing patches on Emily's jeans while Lisa posted photos of Mia in designer dresses. The worst memory was Emily's school play, a moment that still twisted my heart. At 9, Emily had landed the role of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, practicing her lines for weeks, her brown eyes sparkling with pride. James promised to be there, but when the curtain rose, his seat was empty. Later, I found him at Lisa's walking Mia home from her dance recital, playing the doting father figure. Emily, humiliated, overheard classmates whisper, "Where's her dad?" She came home in tears, clutching her stuffed rabbit, asking why Daddy loves Mia more. I'd tried to explain he's just helping a friend, but her small shoulders slumped and she stopped talking about it. That night, I confronted James. He brushed it off. "It was a one-time thing, Sarah. Emily gets it. You should too." But Emily didn't get it. She started calling me cheap, echoing James's complaints when I couldn't afford her art classes. In that past life, I'd let James's words cage me. He'd call me unreasonable when I questioned his late nights, selfish when I asked for help with Margaret. I'd internalized it, believing I was the problem, cooking cheaper meals to stretch our budget, ignoring my arthritis to keep Margaret calm. When I got sick with pneumonia last year, no one noticed I dragged myself to the pharmacy coughing, while James took Lisa and Mia to a Portland food festival. Influenced by James's dismissals, Emily grew distant, resenting me for our tight budget, even leaving home at 18 to marry young, escaping what she saw as my failures. As I sat in the kitchen, Emily peeked in her rabbit tucked under her arm. "Mom, is Grandma okay?" Her voice was soft, uncertain, a crack in her usual guardedness. I knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her face. "She's calming down, sweetie. I'm here." Emily hesitated, then hugged me, her small arms tight. "I don't like when you're sad," she whispered. Her words pierced me not because they hurt, but because they showed she was starting to see me, not just James's version. I hugged her back, vowing to protect her from the life I'd endured. James's betrayal wasn't just about Lisa. It was about erasing me, reducing me to a caretaker, while he played savior elsewhere. As Margaret napped exhausted from her outburst, I texted my lawyer friend again, confirming a meeting. The Sarah of my past life was gone, buried under years of manipulation. The new Sarah was awake and wasn't cooking pot roast for anyone but herself anymore. Margaret's nap brought a fragile peace to our Laurelhurst home, but the tension in my heart was a storm waiting to break. The kitchen, still smelling of seared beef, felt like a prison, its walls closing in with every memory of James's betrayal. I'd told him I was done, that I wanted a divorce, but his dismissal, over pickles, "You're being ridiculous," only deepened my resolve. The empty pickle jar given to Lisa without a thought wasn't just a theft. It symbolized how little James valued me. As I stood by the counter, the half-finished pot roast mocking my efforts, Margaret stirred, her voice rising again. "Pot roast pickles." She demanded, her eyes wild with the childlike intensity that had defined her since her injury. Margaret's condition was a constant weight. Her traumatic brain injury from a fall 5 years ago had rewired her frontal lobe, leaving her impulsive, emotional, and fixated on routines like her pot roast with dill pickles. Neurologists had warned us she'd need lifelong care, but James's tech salary couldn't cover a full-time caregiver after Portland's rising costs. I'd taken on the role, learning her triggers, wrong foods, loud noises, disruptions through trial and error. When she didn't get her way, she'd scream, throw objects, or worse, hurt herself. Last month, she'd banged her head against a wall when I served carrots instead of potatoes. Keeping her calm was a full-time job, one James rarely acknowledged. Now with the pickles gone, I knew a tantrum was imminent. I tried to distract her, offering juice, but her chants grew louder, her hands gripping my arm with surprising strength. "Sarah, pot roast now," she shrieked, yanking my hair so hard tears pricked my eyes. I pried her fingers loose, my arthritis flaring, and said, "Margaret, I'm working on it." But I wasn't. The roast was useless without those pickles, and I refused to run out for more, not this time. In my past life, I'd have raced to Beaverton, pain be damned, to keep the peace. But the reborn Sarah wasn't playing that game anymore. As Margaret's screams escalated, I grabbed my phone, dialing James. He was helping with her casserole at Lisa's, as if our home wasn't unraveling. "James, your mom's losing it. Get home now," I said, my voice sharp. His sigh crackled through the line. "Sarah, you're exaggerating. She was fine when I left. You're just mad about the pickles." My blood ran cold. "She's not fine. She's screaming, and I can't calm her. Get here." He laughed, a dismissive huff. "You're making a scene. I'll grab pickles tomorrow. Handle it." The call ended, leaving me staring at the phone, his words echoing, "You're making a scene." Margaret's shriek turned to a wail, her body slumping as she clutched her head. Then her eyes rolled back and she collapsed, hitting the floor with a thud. Panic seized me. Her seizures were rare but dangerous, a side effect of her injury. I dropped to my knees, checking her pulse, her breathing shallow but steady. "Margaret, stay with me," I whispered, dialing 911. As I gave the operator our address, my mind screamed at James's absence. He was at Lisa's playing with her and Mia, while his own mother lay unconscious, and I bore the weight alone. Paramedics arrived within minutes, their red lights flashing through our windows. They stabilized Margaret, loading her onto a stretcher as neighbors peeked from their porches. At the hospital, she was sedated, her vitals steady, resting in a sterile room that smelled of antiseptic. I sat by her bed, exhaustion battling rage. James arrived an hour later, his face pale, his tech polo wrinkled. "Sarah, I'm sorry," he said, licking his lips nervously. "I thought you were just angry. If I'd known it was serious, I'd have come immediately." His eyes flicked to Margaret, then back to me, pleading. I was at Lisa's and couldn't focus, knowing we were fighting. I scoffed, noticing a smudge of grease on his chin, probably from Lisa's casserole. Wipe your face before you lie to me, I said, my voice flat. His hand shot to his chin, wiping it with his sleeve, his cheeks flushing. Sarah, it's not what you think. I'm here now. Thanks to you, Mom's okay. He reached for me, his arms open, but I stepped back, a wave of revulsion hitting me. His touch, once comforting, now felt like a violation. Don't I, said, my voice steel. We're done, James. I meant it. His face paled, his hands dropping. Sarah, we're husband and wife. Can't we talk this out? Please don't give me the cold shoulder. I shook my head, the hospital's hum filling the silence. I want a divorce. His eyes widened, but he grabbed my shoulders, his voice low. No way. Lisa's just a friend. I swear nothing is going on. Don't say that word again. He leaned in, kissing my forehead, a gesture that once felt tender. Now it made my skin crawl. I pulled away, rushing to the bathroom to scrub my forehead until it burned, staring at my reflection. A woman I barely recognized, but one who was finally fighting back. The hospital room's antiseptic scent clung to my skin as I stood by Margaret's bed, her breathing steady under the sedation's grip. My mother-in-law's collapse had been a wake-up call not just for her fragile health, but for the reality of my marriage to James. His half-hearted apology, I didn't know it was serious, Sarah, and the grease on his chin from Lisa's casserole were the final cracks in the facade I'd clung to for years. Once a comfort, his touch now repulsed me, a visceral rejection that surged when he tried to kiss my forehead. I'd scrubbed my skin raw in the bathroom, staring at a reflection that was both stranger and savior. The Sarah Thompson who'd endured James's neglect was gone, replaced by a woman ready to break free. Back home in Portland's Laurelhurst neighborhood, I couldn't stay another night under the same roof as James. His dismissal of Margaret's crisis, his casual betrayal with the Pickles, and his brazen lies about Lisa had stripped away any lingering hope. I packed a small bag, my ID, a change of clothes, and Emily's favorite stuffed rabbit, and checked into a boutique hotel downtown, its sleek lobby starkly contrasting our chaotic home. I ordered a feast of my favorite foods, crab cakes with lemon aioli, key lime pie with a graham cracker crust dishes I hadn't tasted in years because I'd been too busy pinching pennies. As I savored each bite, the weight of my past life lifted, replaced by a hunger for freedom. Alone in the hotel room, I accessed our home's security cameras, a system I'd installed to monitor Margaret's outbursts when I ran errands. The feed was grainy but clear enough to shatter any doubts. James and Lisa were locked in a passionate embrace on our living room couch, her hands in his hair and his lips on her neck. My stomach churned, not with jealousy but with a cold clarity. James's voice crackled through the audio. I fell for you at that college reunion, Lisa. You're like something out of a novel, graceful, gentle. But I can't leave Sarah. She handles Mom Emily in the house. You get my heart, though. Lisa's reply was soft but sharp. Then why not divorce her? I've waited 2 years. Her words revealed her motivations. Lisa, a former paralegal who'd quit after Tom's death, had leaned into her widowhood, crafting a persona of fragility to keep James close. Tom's life insurance had run dry, and her Instagram, full of Mia's dance recitals and new dresses, hinted at James's financial support. She wasn't just grieving. She was calculating using James's guilt over Tom to secure a provider. James's response was a knife. Sarah's my wife. She loves me. I'd go crazy without her. But you and Mia, I'll give you everything else. He promised Lisa his paycheck, leaving me to play the dutiful housewife while he built a parallel life. I hit record, capturing every word, every touch. This wasn't just evidence, it was ammunition. In my past life, I'd ignored the signs, the cedarwood cologne, the late nights, the $3,000 budget he'd slashed while funneling money to Lisa. I'd believed his lies, thinking I was the problem, cooking cheaper meals, sewing Emily's clothes to save money. When Emily started calling me cheap, echoing James's complaints, I'd blamed myself. But now, watching them on the screen, I felt no tears, only resolve. Emily deserved better than a father who prioritized another child, and I deserved better than a husband who saw me as a servant. I thought of Emily asleep at home with a babysitter, unaware of the storm brewing. Her distance from me, her quiet resentment shaped by James's dismissals, hurt more than his betrayal. She was 9, old enough to sense the cracks in our family, but too young to understand why. I texted the babysitter confirming Emily was safe and made a mental note to talk to her tomorrow, to start rebuilding the trust James had eroded. The hotel room's silence was a gift, a space to plan my next move. Divorce wasn't just a word now, it was a strategy. James was up for a promotion at his tech firm, a role that demanded a stable family image. I'd use that to my advantage, but first, I needed to protect myself and Emily. As I lay on the hotel bed, the city lights glinting through the window, I felt a strange peace. The Sarah who'd begged for James's attention and exhausted herself for Margaret's approval was gone. I was reborn, not in a mystical sense, but in the fire of betrayal, ready to reclaim my life. The security footage looped on my laptop, and James and Lisa's voices reminded me why I was fighting. I closed my eyes not to escape, but to prepare. The Portland skyline sparkled outside my hotel window, contrasting the chaos I'd left behind in Laurelhurst. A week had passed since Margaret's collapse, and I hadn't returned home, despite James's texts alternating between apologies and accusations. "Sarah, come back, let's work this out," followed by, "You're being selfish leaving Mom and Emily like this." I ignored them, my resolve hardened by the security footage of his affair with Lisa. The video saved on a thumb drive was my leverage, but I needed more than evidence to break free. James's upcoming promotion at his tech firm was my chance to outsmart him before I walked away for good. James's job at a Portland tech startup was his pride, a senior developer role with a shot at a director position. The promotion hinged on his image, a stable, family-oriented leader. He'd bragged about it at neighborhood barbecues, his arm around me for show, while funneling money to Lisa behind my back. I knew his game, maintain the perfect husband facade while living a double life. So I played along, but on my terms. I returned to social media dormant since Emily's birth and posted a carefully curated photo of us from last year's company picnic smiling under a willow tree. The caption read, "Through every storm, still my forever." Comments poured in, neighbors, coworkers, even his boss. "You two are goals." I smiled, knowing each, like, tightened the trap. At the hotel, I mapped my strategy. James had controlled our finances for years, cutting my budget to $3,000 a month while claiming his bonuses were tied up in networking. But I wasn't naive anymore. I'd seen the receipts: $200 dinners with Lisa, $500 dresses for Mia while Emily wore hand-me-downs. Based on his salary in the past 3 years, a rough estimate suggested he'd saved at least $800,000, much of it likely funneled to Lisa. I needed to hit him where it hurt his wallet. So I texted him a link to a $300,000 Birkin bag, a status symbol he'd recognized from his tech circles. "If you love me, buy this," I wrote, my tone playful, but pointed. He called immediately, his voice tense. "Sarah, that's wild. You don't need a bag like that." "You're right," I replied, cool as ice. "Just transfer the $300,000, then, same thing." Silence stretched on the line. I could almost hear his panic. $300,000 was a chunk of his savings, likely the money he'd promised Lisa. He texted a long paragraph. "That kind of money's reckless." "Sarah, you don't even go out enough to show it off. I'm just looking out for you." I laughed, replying, "So you do have it? Good. Send it." The next day, my bank app pinged, $300,000 deposited. I checked the security feed and saw him pacing and arguing with Lisa, her face red as she gestured wildly. She'd moved into our home assuming I'd stay gone, but the money had likely come from her savings, James's promise of a better tomorrow now in my account. Lisa's move was a disaster. The cameras showed her tossing Emily's bedding into a pile, replacing it with Mia's glittery pink sheets. Margaret, enraged, demanded Sarah's pot roast, her voice shaking the walls. Lisa, unprepared for Margaret's intensity, tried to placate her with store-bought roast, but Margaret spat it out, screaming, "Not Sarah's!" and lunged at her, leaving bite marks on Lisa's arm. Empty in the chaos, Emily hid in her room, clutching her rabbit. My heart ached for her, but I was planning to bring her to me. I texted a child psychologist, booking a session to help Emily process the upheaval, determined to rebuild her trust. Lisa's motivations were more precise now. The cameras caught her talking to Mia. "We'll have a better life soon, sweetie. James will take care of us." She'd leaned on James for money and status, eyeing the life of a tech director's wife. But Margaret's demands and Emily's presence were obstacles she hadn't anticipated. James, meanwhile, tried to keep up his facade, texting me, "Come home, Sarah. Mom needs you. Emily misses you." I didn't respond, but I posted another photo, a selfie in a new dress captioned, "Finding my spark again." His co-workers liked it, his boss commented, looking radiant, each click a nail in his promotion's coffin. I met with my lawyer friend, laying out the footage and financial records. She nodded, impressed. "This is solid, Sarah. We'll go for a significant settlement." I wasn't just leaving James, I was dismantling his world, using his ambition against him. As I watched the city lights from my hotel, the $300,000 in my account felt like the first step toward independence. I'd started a food blog sharing recipes from my hotel kitchenette. My first post, a crab cake recipe, was gaining traction. It was small but mine, a seed of the life I'd build for Emily and me. The Portland hotel room where I'd taken refuge was my sanctuary, its sleek lines and soft lighting starkly contrasting the chaos I'd left behind in Laurelhurst. A week after Margaret's collapse, I watched our home's security cameras, my laptop screen revealing the disaster unfolding in my absence. Lisa, the widow who'd wormed her way into my husband James's life, had moved into our house, assuming I'd stay gone after demanding a divorce. Her audacity was breathtaking. She'd tossed Emily's bedding into a corner, replaced it with Mia's glittery pink sheets, and strewn her clothes across my closet. But she hadn't counted on Margaret James's mother, whose brain injury made her a force of nature, unpredictable and relentless. Margaret's obsession with routine, her cherished pot roast, wasn't just a quirk. It was a lifeline, a remnant of stability after her fall 5 years ago, left her with the emotional volatility of a 6-year-old. I'd spent years mastering her needs, sourcing specific ingredients to keep her calm. Unprepared for the reality of Margaret's condition, Lisa tried to take my place, but the cameras showed her unraveling. Margaret, her gray hair wild, stood in the kitchen banging her blue ceramic bowl and chanting "Sarah's roast, Sarah's roast." Lisa, flustered, offered a takeout tray of pot roast from a local diner, passing it off as her own. Margaret took one bite, her face twisting in disgust. "Not Sarah's," she screamed, spitting it out and lunging at Lisa, her nails leaving red marks on Lisa's arm. Lisa shrieked, scrambling under the kitchen table, but Margaret was relentless, chasing her to the balcony, biting her neck and shoving her toward a trash can. "Where's Sarah?" Margaret wailed, her voice a mix of rage and confusion. Lisa, her carefully curated facade of fragility crumbling, shouted back, "I'm not your maid. I'm James's wife now." The words were a mistake. Margaret's eyes blazed, and she grabbed Lisa's hair, dragging her across the room. Emily, my 9-year-old daughter, watched from the hallway, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her brown eyes wide with fear. My heart ached seeing her caught in a storm I'd tried to shield her from. I texted the babysitter, ensuring Emily was safe, and booked another session with the child psychologist to help her process the upheaval. Lisa's desperation was evident in the footage. She'd moved in to claim James, believing her role as Tom's widow gave her a permanent hold on him. But Margaret's demands exposed her limits. She ordered a deluxe sushi platter for Mia, hoping to appease Margaret by plating the takeout roast on our dishes. She even recorded a voice message for James: "I made Mom's roast. Everything's under control." But Margaret, with the uncanny intuition of her altered mind, tore into the sushi instead, shoving salmon into her mouth before spitting it out. "Disgusting! I want Sarah's roast," she cried, pounding her fists. The house was a war zone, broken. Plates scattered food, Lisa's composure shattered. When James returned from work, his tech polo rumpled. He froze in the doorway, stunned by the chaos. "Lisa, what the hell happened?" he snapped, dropping his briefcase. "You were supposed to pick up Emily and Mia from school. I had to leave work early." Lisa, tears streaming, pointed at Margaret. "She attacked me, I cooked, but she said it was wrong." James knelt by his mother, who was now sobbing, clutching her belly. "Mom, why didn't you eat?" he asked, then turned on Lisa. "You know she needs her food just right. How could you screw this up?" Lisa, battered and humiliated, could only weep her dream of replacing me, collapsing under Margaret's unrelenting demands. Emily's voice broke through the chaos, and a small cry came from her room. "My blanket was gone. I want my bed." I switched the camera feed and saw her curled on the floor. Mia bouncing on her bed, shouting, "This is mine now. Mommy said so." My blood boiled. Lisa had displaced my daughter in her own home. Emily's hurt wasn't new. James's neglect had already seeded resentment, like when she'd called me cheap after he skipped her school play. But now her tears were a call to action. I contacted my lawyer, adding this to our case: Lisa's disruption of Emily's stability was grounds for custody. The footage was a goldmine, not just for the divorce, but for my future. I'd started a food blog from the hotel, posting recipes like my crab cakes, gaining a small but growing following. Each comment was a step toward financial independence, a way to provide for Emily without James's control. Lisa's chaos was her undoing. She'd underestimated Margaret, Emily, and me. As I watched her flee to the balcony, nursing her bruises, I knew James's idealized image of her was cracking. My plan was taking shape. The next move would be his downfall. The Portland tech scene buzzed with anticipation for James's company gala, a glitzy event at a downtown hotel where his promotion to director would be announced. For weeks, I'd played the part of the devoted wife, posting curated social media photos of our happy marriage to bolster his image, a smiling selfie at a park, a throwback to our wedding captioned, "Still my forever." Each post drew likes from his coworkers, boss, and clients, reinforcing the stable family man facade he needed. But I was no longer the Sarah who'd begged for his approval. From my hotel room, I'd sent the security footage of James and Lisa's affair to his rival, a cunning coworker eyeing the same promotion. Tonight, that footage would be my weapon. I returned home briefly, keeping up appearances. Sensing my distance, James tried to charm me, buying artisanal ingredients for Margaret's roast and promising, "No more Lisa, Sarah, I swear." I nodded, forcing a smile, but my focus was on Emily. She'd grown quieter, her brown eyes searching mine for reassurance. At the psychologist's office, she'd admitted, "I thought Daddy didn't love us because he was always with Mia." I hugged her tight, promising, "We're enough, sweetie, just us." Her slight nod was a spark of trust, a bridge we were rebuilding. My blog gained traction, 500 followers now, with brands offering small sponsorships for my recipes. It was a start, a path to independence I'd never had in my past life. The gala night arrived, the hotel ballroom glittering with chandeliers and tech elite in tailored suits. I wore a sleek black dress, my hair swept up, playing the perfect wife. In a navy suit, James whispered, "You look stunning, Sarah. We're good, right?" I smiled thinly, my thumb drive of evidence tucked in my purse. As he mingled charming executives, I slipped away, ensuring my contact had the footage ready. The program began, speeches droning until the promotion announcement loomed. Then chaos erupted. Lisa stormed in her dress, disheveled, her eyes glassy with wine. "Sarah's the side chick," she shouted, pointing at me. "James loves me. While you were slaving for his senile mom, he took me to seaside dinners." The room gasped, heads swiveling. James's face drained of color, his jaw tight. I stood calm, my heart steady. This was the moment I'd planned. Before James could respond, the ballroom's massive screen flickered, and there it was, the security footage, James and Lisa entangled on our couch, his voice clear. "Sarah handles the house. You get my heart." Their scheming words, planning to keep me as a caretaker while they lived their romance, played for all to hear. The crowd erupted in murmurs, executives whispering, James's boss glaring. James spun toward Lisa, his voice a roar. "You did this. You're obsessed, trying to ruin my family." He slapped her, a sharp crack that silenced the room. Lisa staggered, stunned, muttering, "It wasn't me." But James wasn't listening, his rage turning to me. "Sarah, I swear she's lying." I stepped forward, my voice clear. "We're done, James. Divorce, now." The room was a sea of shocked faces, but no one dared intervene after that footage. His promotion was gone, his reputation in tatters. The company fired him on the spot, citing damage to their image. I walked out head high, Emily's future, my focus. Back at the hotel, I checked my blog, 1,000 followers now, a local restaurant offering to feature my recipes. Emily called, her voice soft. "Mom, I'm proud of you." Her words were a lifeline, proof I was building a new life. Lisa's outburst, meant to break me, had backfired, exposing James's betrayal. My lawyer texted, "We've got him. Big settlement coming." Looking out at Portland's lights, I felt free, my rebirth complete, ready for the next chapter with Emily by my side. The fallout from the gala was a wildfire, consuming James's carefully curated image as Portland's tech golden boy. The security footage I'd sent to his rival exposing his affair with Lisa had played on the ballroom's big screen, leaving gasps and whispers in its wake. His promotion to director was gone, and his job was terminated for tarnishing the company's reputation. I, Sarah Thompson, walked out of that hotel with my head high, the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. Back in my downtown Portland hotel room, I wasn't just planning a divorce. I was building a new life for me and Emily, my 9-year-old daughter, whose trust I was determined to rebuild. The legal battle began the next morning. I met my lawyer, Rachel, a sharp-witted friend from college, who specialized in family law. Over coffee in a bustling Pearl District cafe, I handed her the thumb drive of footage James and Lisa's couch embraced their scheming words about keeping me as a caretaker while they lived their romance. I added bank records I'd dug up showing years of James funneling money to Lisa, $200 dinners, $500 dresses for Mia, thousands in gifts, while I stretched a $3,000 monthly budget. Rachel's eyes gleamed. This is ironclad, Sarah. We're going for two-thirds of the assets, full custody of Emily, and alimony to cover Margaret's care costs. James fought back, of course. He knew his tech career was in ruins, but he played the remorseful husband opening a food truck selling gourmet tacos to make ends meet. He posted photos on social media, him flipping tortillas, smiling with Emily at school drop-offs, even spoon-feeding Margaret her beloved pot roast. Neighbors called me pleading Sarah, he's trying every couple of fights. Think of Emily. But I saw through the act. In my past life, I'd fallen for his apologies, believing his promises while he spent our savings on Lisa. Not this time. The footage and financial records were my shield, and Emily's quiet pain, her years of feeling second to Mia, was my fire. The court process was grueling. James's lawyer argued he was a devoted father, claiming the affair was a momentary lapse. But Rachel dismantled their case, presenting the footage, bank statements, and even Emily's psychologist's testimony about her emotional distress from James's neglect. In a private session with the judge, Emily spoke softly. Daddy was always with Mia, not me. Mom stayed even when it hurt. Her words, raw and honest, shifted the room. I squeezed Rachel's hand, tears pricking my eyes, not from pain, but pride. Emily was seeing me, the real me, not the cheap mom James had painted. The judge ruled in my favor, two-thirds of our assets, including the $300,000 James had transferred to me, full custody of Emily and alimony to offset Margaret's care. The house went to James, but I didn't care. I wanted freedom, not bricks. I rented a cozy apartment in southeast Portland, its big windows letting in light I hadn't felt in years. Emily's room was her own again, her stuffed rabbit on a new bed, her drawings taped to the walls. She hugged me one night, whispering, I'm glad we're here, Mom. Her trust was a fragile bridge, but we were crossing it together. My food blog started in the hotel was my lifeline. What began with a crab cake recipe had grown to 2,000 followers, local restaurants sponsoring posts for my lemon aioli or key lime pie. I took online courses in digital marketing learning to monetize my content, each click a step toward independence. I wasn't rich but free, no longer reliant on James's $3,000 handouts. Emily helped, sometimes suggesting recipe names like Sunshine Pie, and her giggles reminded me why I fought. The divorce wasn't just a legal win, it was my rebirth, a chance to show Emily a mother who valued herself. As we unpacked boxes, laughing over a pizza dinner, I knew we were building something new, something ours. Our new apartment in southeast Portland was a haven. Its hardwood floors and sunny windows were a fresh canvas for Emily and me. The divorce was final, the courtroom's echo fading as we settled into a life unburdened by James's betrayal. My food blog had blossomed to 5,000 followers, with local cafes featuring my recipes and a small ad network paying for clicks. I'd enrolled in a community college course on content creation, learning to edit videos of my cooking crab cakes, sizzling pies, cooling each post a brick in our new foundation. Emily, now 10, was blooming too, her drawings brighter, her laughter louder. She'd started helping in the kitchen, stirring batter with a grin, saying, Mom, we're a team. Her words healed wounds I'd carried from my past life when she'd resented me, shaped by James's lies. We traveled during school breaks, places I'd never seen in my years as James's caretaker. In New Orleans, we ate beignets, powdered sugar dusting Emily's nose as she giggled. At the Grand Canyon, she sketched the cliffs, her eyes wide with wonder. Mom, it's like the world's bigger now, she said, and I nodded, feeling it too. Her psychologist sessions helped her process James's absence, and she'd begun to understand my sacrifices. One night she hugged me, whispering, I'm sorry I called you cheap. You're the strongest person I know. I held her close, my heart full, knowing we were rewriting our story together. James and Lisa's life, meanwhile, unraveled. A former neighbor, Karen, called with updates, her voice heavy with gossip. Lisa had married James, believing his promises of a tech comeback, but Margaret's demands broke her. Her brain injury made her relentless, screaming for Sarah's roast daily throwing plates when Lisa served anything else. Lisa, used to playing the fragile widow, wasn't prepared for the reality of Margaret's care. Karen described a fight where Margaret bit Lisa's arm, leaving bruises, while Lisa shouted, I'm not your servant. Desperate to rebuild his career, James took a low-level coding job but violated company policy by leaking code to a competitor, hoping for a quick payout. He was fired again, fined $20,000, and sank into debt. Their tiny apartment, a far cry from our old Laurelhurst home, was a battleground. Karen said neighbors called the police weekly, tired of their shouting matches. Lisa's daughter, Mia, now 12, blamed Lisa for their poverty, crying over lost dance lessons, her dreams of stardom fading. James turned to gambling, chasing a big win, but lost their savings, forcing them to move to a rundown duplex. One night, in a drunken rage, he pushed Lisa down the stairs, breaking her leg. The police classified it as a domestic dispute, but the neighborhood's last memory was Lisa's sobs, James's curses, and Margaret's wails for roast, a grim echo of the life I'd escaped. Lisa sent me a voice message, her tone venomous. "You got the money, Sarah, but I got James. I'm the winner," I laughed, replying. "Learn to make pot roast, Lisa. You'll need it." Then I blocked her James and their shared number, severing the last tie to my past life. A week later, James texted Sarah, "I miss you. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. His words were as empty as his promises. My blog hit 10,000 followers, and a local TV station invited me to demo a recipe on air. Emily cheered, sketching a logo for Sarah's kitchen. As we baked together, her hands sticky with dough, I felt peace, a life built on my terms with Emily's love as my anchor. The world was ours, and we were never looking back.